Hello all and welcome. My name is Alexis Kinslow and today I will be discussing the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument and the conservation recommendations related to it. Let's go ahead and get into it. An atoll is a ring-shaped coral reef that encircles a lagoon. The Rose Atoll started out as an ancient volcano that built up from deep-sea eruptions millions of years ago. Eventually, this volcano emerged as a volcanic island, and the first corals and reef-building organisms settled on the fringes. This volcanic island eventually went extinct, but building reefs still maintained a proximity to the sea surface, forming a coral cap over the summit of the extinct volcano. Once this volcano disappeared completely, it was replaced by the lagoon. Specifically, the Rose Atoll is a nearly square coralline algal reef that almost completely encloses a small lagoon. It includes two sandy islets, the Rose and the Sand, and also encompasses the Rose Atoll National Wildlife Refuge. This Marine Protected Area, or MPA, consists of approximately 13,436 square miles and is the easternmost Samoan island, roughly 130 nautical miles southeast of Pago Pago Harbor in American Samoa. The Rose Atoll Monument also encompasses the Rose Atoll National Wildlife Refuge and has been included in the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa since its expansion in 2012. On the left is a map of the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa, with the small dot in the center of the Moleva unit being the Rose Atoll MPA. On the right is a more up-close map of the Rose Atoll MPA, where the no-take zone and wildlife refuge are included. A brief history. The Rose Atoll National Marine Sanctuary was established in 2009 by President George W. Bush, but previously, Samoan Islanders would visit the Rose Atoll to fish and collect birds, bird feathers, turtles, and other resources. Several species collected from the atoll were used for cultural celebrations and events, for example, the giant clam. The Rose Atoll is also known as Matu o Manu, or Island of Seabirds. A major event for the atoll was, in 1993, Taiwanese longliner Jin Sheng Fa ran aground on the southwest arm of Rose Atoll, spilling over 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel, oil, and other contaminants into the water and onto the reefs. Impacts from this devastating event include the destruction of existing reefs, deaths of important invertebrates and the crustose coralline algae. This allowed for opportunistic algal species to bloom and the attraction of invasive species such as herbivorous fish and sea urchins. Despite this incident, the Rose Atoll remains one of the most pristine in the world. Current protection status. The Rose Atoll MPA prohibits commercial fishing throughout all of its waters. However, non-commercial and recreational charter fishing is permitted throughout the sanctuary. The Rose Atoll has a no-take status starting at 12 nautical miles from the atoll itself, meaning no fishing of any kind is allowed. Access to the National Wildlife Refuge is allowed by permit only. There are four main habitat types featured in the Rose Atoll National Marine Sanctuary. They are the crustose coralline algal reefs, the littoral forest, beach strands, and the lagoon. Let's start by discussing the reefs. Crustose coralline algae, or CCA, are a type of stony coral featuring hard calcareous red algae and are the primary reef-building species of the Rose Atoll. This makes the reefs of the Rose Atoll distinctive from others found in the Samoan Islands. These reefs host 272 species of reef fish, 7 of which scientists described for the first time while at Rose Atoll. The CCA reefs depend on the grazing fish to clear them of seaweed. This prevents smothering and offers clean surfaces to coral larvae. A littoral forest is a forest along a coast or wetland that features salt-tolerant vegetation. The refuge tropical Pinsonia tree forest provides habitat and nesting sites for nesting seabird species as well as crabs and insects. The forest also serves as a non-breeding habitat for the long-tailed cuckoo, pictured in the bottom middle, which is the only forest bird featured on the entire atoll. The Rose Atoll beaches are essential for the Pacific Islands turtles, such as the green turtles and hawksbill turtles, as it offers beach habitat that is isolated and undisturbed. The Rose Atoll contains the largest number of nesting turtles throughout American Samoa. The strands also act as important foraging winter grounds and nesting grounds for some seabird species. Other species that use the lagoon and beach strands include crabs. In the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument Comprehensive Conservation Plan, updated in 2014, a few endangered or threatened species were listed specifically. Out of the 5 listed species, only one is considered least concern today. This is the Pacific golden plover, featured on the bottom right, whose IUCN status was reevaluated in 2016. Species that have faced depletion elsewhere, some of which have declined worldwide by as much as 98%, are found in abundance at Rose Atoll. This includes giant clams, moray wrasse, large parrotfishes, and gray reef sharks. With few relatively undisturbed islands remaining in the world, the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument is one of the last refuges for seabird and turtle species in the Central Pacific. The Rose Atoll National MPA faces threats from climate change in the forms of increasing sea surface temperatures and ocean acidification. As coral individuals, reefs, and fish communities are all affected, the dynamics of the ecosystem will change. Biological processes will not sync up anymore, and certain species could be lost. Coral and coral reefs are very sensitive to changes in their environment, and increasing water temperatures put stress on the coral. This can cause coral bleaching and also affects how corals grow and develop. Overall, coral communities will have a hard time acclimating to higher temperatures, and many already live at their physiological limit, leaving little room for adaptation. Increasing water temperatures will also affect the organisms that depend on the reef. Both behavioral and biological traits will respond to the temperature increase. Examples of these include aerobic scope, habitat selection, timing of settlement, predator avoidance, and individual fitness. As multiple species change these responses, the entire reef community will feel the impacts. Certain processes and events will now be out of sync, for example, larvae hatching and prey abundance. However, studies have shown that there is a transgenerational acclimation in reef fish, meaning that while adult reef fish cannot acclimate to increasing water temperatures, their offspring can. This gives hope to coral reef communities in their bout for survival. Ocean acidification occurs as the atmosphere and ocean exchange transfers of carbon dioxide. The dissolving carbon dioxide undergoes a chemical reaction resulting in more hydrogen ions, which increases the water's acidity. A high amount of hydrogen ions lowers the concentration of carbonate ions in the water. These are necessary to shell and coral skeleton growth and can also contribute to the process of coral bleaching. When corals are stressed, they expel the zooxanthellae that live inside their tissues. Without the algae to provide color, corals appear transparent and reveal their white skeletons. Bleached corals are not dead, but they are at more risk of starvation and disease. In 2020, there were a few confirmed cases of coral bleaching in the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument. However, while ocean acidification is a concern for coral reefs, rising water temperatures pose a larger threat. Overall, the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument and its coral communities have the potential to lose certain species and biological processes due to increasing ocean water temperatures from climate change. Depending on the rate of temperature increase and the temperature that the water reaches, corals and reef fish could still stand a chance as acclimation is slow but possible for certain species. Let's now discuss management recommendations. A size reduction of the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument is not recommended. The Rose Atoll National Marine Monument is approximately 13,436 square miles, and while it would not be considered large, the surrounding waters of the American Samoa National Marine Sanctuary allow it. Within these waters, non-commercial and recreational charter fishing is allowed by permit. There are also numerous tourism and outreach opportunities available to the general public. Therefore, a reduction in overall size would not be necessary for human activity to occur. Even if the Rose Atoll National Marine Sanctuary was reduced in size, regulations regarding human activity would be based on those of the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa. However, a reduction of the no-take zone around the Rose Atoll would not be in the coralline reef ecosystem's best interest and is also not recommended. Since established in 2009, the Rose Atoll National Marine Monument is considered a no-take MPA within 12 nautical miles of the atoll, with no access to either Rose or Sand Islet, and the atoll is allowed without special permits or permission. This enables the coralline algal reefs to remain essentially untouched by humans, in turn creating a pristine environment to allow for the recovery and protection of the reef ecosystem. No-take MPAs produce greater conservation benefits and are considered the most effective type of MPA for restoring ecosystems. Because climate change will have a large effect on our reefs and the ecosystems they promote, this level of protection will give the atoll's reefs and other habitats a better chance at surviving and adapting. Therefore, a change of the managing governing body and the current protections is not recommended. The current level of fishing restrictions of the Rose Atoll MPA should be maintained as is. Non-commercial and recreational charter fishing is allowed within the marine sanctuary, just not within 12 nautical miles of the atoll. Therefore, having a strict no-take area is adequate in protecting the atoll's ecosystems and surrounding waters while also providing fishing opportunities. The Rose Atoll National Marine Sanctuary is home to over 270 species of reef fish, as well as supports 97% of American Samoa's seabird population. This includes 12 federally protected migratory species and 5 federally protected shorebird species. These birds depend on the atoll and its waters to provide protection and a stable source of food. Allowing commercial fishing in these areas could impact bird population and survival through creating competition, potential for bycatch, and exposure to pollutants. Therefore, a reduction in protection level is not recommended. The Rose Atoll National Marine Sanctuary provides pristine habitat and protection for reef communities and migratory birds. This MPA provides strict protection of the atoll and its immediate surrounding waters while also providing areas for human activity and interaction. The current management and protection levels do not need to be amended at this time, as this MPA is already putting its best foot forward in giving its ecosystems the best chance it can against climate change. Thank you.